In today's session, From Scientist to CBA, a fireside chat on the legal and strategic blueprint behind biotech startups will explore the real-world playbook for launching a growing biotech company. This conversation is designed to provide practical, experience-driven insights at every stage, from early discovery to scaling a company and planning for exit. Whether you are a scientist considering entrepreneurship or an early-stage founder refining your strategy, we hope you will come away with a clear understanding of the legal, IP, and business decisions that can accelerate or derail your journey. Before we begin, just a quick note for the audience. We'll reserve the final 20 minutes for Q&A, and please feel free to submit your questions at any time using the Q&A box. Now, it's my great pleasure to introduce our distinguished guests. Dr. Avery Yan is the founder and CEO of Riboway Therapeutics, a Boston-based biotech company leveraging AI to decode RNA biology and enable precise directional control of protein expression, unlocking targets beyond the reach of conventional modalities. A scientist entrepreneur with a strong track record of advancing programs from discovery to the clinic, Avery has contributed to more than 20 drug programs and 5 IND filings across multiple therapeutic areas. She currently serves as president of BioSpark Group and recently led Riboway to victory at the Bio 2025 Startup Stadium. Welcome, Avery. And our second guest, Dr. Steve Chen, is a seasoned biotech executive and attorney, currently serving as general counsel of Insem Therapeutics. He provides integrated legal, regulatory, and operational leadership to support global clinical stage development programs with over 18 years of cross-functional experience across biotechnology, pharmaceuticals, and professional services. Dr. Chen brings a unique combination of scientific depth, legal expertise, and strategic execution. His career includes leadership roles at organizations such as DSM, Vertex Pharmaceuticals, Insem, and the law firm Jones Day. Welcome, Steve. And without further ado, I'm delighted to turn the conversation over to Avery and Steve.
So, Avery, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Avery Yan. I'm the founder and CEO of Riboway Therapeutics. As Yinxin, our host, has just mentioned. So I am a scientist that transitioned from academia to industry and then to starting a startup. So each person probably have a different journey. So my journey actually started back to my postdoctoral research, where I discovered a lot of novel RNA regulation events, and that actually stimulated me thinking about the potential translation and application. I did not go straight to starting a company, though. I went to the industry to learn about drug development. I was at Amgen for 5 years, actually doing more like translational research, applying some of the cutting edge tools, and nowadays we may call it AI drug development, organized type of work. I also spent 2 years doing startup incubation investment before I actually start this journey. So I think I kind of get a good view about the industry and also learning from my experience running BioSpark group, learning from the community, so I can kind of cover different perspectives, and I'm looking forward to sharing with everybody my view with Steve. And Steve also covers from the legal end of starting a company. And one thing I want to say is that, there is no standard formula of success, no standard way of transitioning. So I hope that what I'm sharing today that can help people who are thinking about this process. And I am learning myself as well. So I'm just looking forward to discussing more and continuing the discussion with you even after this webinar.
Thank you, Avery. I'm very excited to have you. I know you have a very busy schedule. Actually, you're traveling in China. So thank you for coming over. So let's go into the questions. I think as you guys see on the slide, so there will be 5 sections covering from the founding the company to the exit. So it will be more of a Q&A format. So now we enter into the first section, founding a company. So Avery, my first question is, as I always wondered, as a scientist, how do you evaluate whether your research is ready and whether or not you personally is ready to start a company?
Very good question. So I think before you really dive in, just spend some time to understand what's it like running a company or doing a startup, right? I think the biotech world, doing science in the biotech world is very different from doing science in academia. In academia, it's all about novelty, about the the exciting biology, etc., and how you can prove it. In biotech, it's actually all about whether you can make a drug. Whatever fancy science you may have, can it actually translate, right? So the mindset is very different. And if you transit from a scientist to a CEO, you may disappointedly find that you may not have that much time thinking about science. You spend a lot of time thinking about all the other things, the operation, the legal side, people side, and your potential partners, investors. It's a very different life, right? So just think about whether that's something that you are ready to dive in. And if it is, right, then you want to see, am I ready to start a company? So different scientists, there are different ways people get into the entrepreneurial world. I think many scientists actually I see many scientists that were actually usually discovered by the investors, by the people who has money and found, your research is very interesting. I think it can make an impact. I think that's the easiest path, right? Because that means that somebody's already ready to fund you, and if there is no such people there, or there are good people who are like a finance business background and interested in the area and found you to start this journey together, right? That's also great because you have a co-founder, you have somebody who can take care of other things for you. But then usually in that case, you are not the CEO, you're more likely the CSO. And if you are truly just thinking about doing this on your own, that you want to transition to be a CEO, that's a lot of courage to take. Congratulations that if you're already ready to make this kind of switch, that And then, so all you need to think is, okay, so you probably already have done very cool science. Now what you need to think is, do you think the work is, well, first, is it always reproducible, right? I think reproducibility is always the first thing that people got challenges when we translate academic research into like a biotech type environment. So translatability, and then also think about the impact, right? What kind of diseases are you going to be, do you think it can be applied to? Maybe it can be applied to a huge range of diseases, right? Well, you may better have one or two in mind, right? And any disease you're entering into, right? What's the competition landscape like? Do you think like your risk is going to really make a difference there, right? So it has to make sense from the thinking about what the science will lead to, and it should have a position in the market, right? I know it's probably far away from that, but you need to have all this in mind. Steve, maybe I know you have many questions, so we should.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I think it it tells your mind. And I think let's say once you have decided you started the company, right? Then the next step I would assume is to attract investors' attention. Money is always important. Then so what do an early stage biotech investors actually look for in I guess in a founding scientist CEO?
So I think at least two sides. One is like on the science and on the impact, right? The science and the potential impact of the program, the application. So are they impactful enough on this, which is something that I already mentioned in the last question. And then another is on the people side, right? Why would the investor want to invest in you? Why does the investor think that you are going to be able to, from a scientist, be able to lead a group like that, right? So of course you need to have good scientific ground. So probably you have beautiful publications, right? The research has been really by the field, recognized by the field. And two is you as a potential CEO, that you have demonstrated features that surpass a general scientist, right? Like they see you are willing to listen, you are coachable, and they see you have the potential management capability. So, and well, when they talk to you, you are likable, right? They feel like they talk to you, they feel like you have that capability, have the general EQ to manage things, right? So there's many things that they could be look for, but I think those are two of the typical things the investors go out look at.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. Maybe let me talk a little bit about the tactical issues in forming a company, right?
That'd be great.
Yeah. So I think people often ask, should I form a company in the US? Should it be in a C Corp or whatever? Those kind of technical questions. I mean, they are very practical question, but in my view, I think forming a company looks like an ego question, but in truth, it's a strategic question if you agree. Because, for example, where to form the company, there's so many places you can form it. You can form in the US, in China, in Cayman, in Singapore, many of those popular jurisdictions. Then what is the reason for doing that, right? So I think as a founder, you got to consider why you want to form in those jurisdictions. Do you want to access to the talent pool in China, because of it's more economical, the talent pool is more economical, or in the US because the research is more cutting edge, right? Or you want to access to the funding, the venture capital funding, because then if in China, then you probably can access the Chinese fund, right? If you form in the US, you cannot access to the Chinese fund. Or there's a tax treatment. There's two different countries have a different tax treatment, the tax rate. All those mentioned, US, China, Singapore, Cayman, right? Or you want to consider the geopolitical restrictions, especially under the current situation. So those are all the factors you need to consider. I don't think there's a kind of a ready answer for it. Really depends, right? Depends on what the strengths of your technology, where do you think you will best to access the venture capital and so forth. The other thing I want to, point out, which is equally important, which is a strategic question, is that you gotta use the equity structure, meaning the share structure, as a motivator, right? Because on the one hand, you want to keep a control of the company by holding majority of the shares, but on the other hand, you also want to incentivize not only yourself but also your employee, your investors, to move the company forward, so that your job as a founder will be much easier. And then the other thing is that you want to avoid the ownership of the the equity, to negatively affect the growth of company. Some of those reasons are obvious. For example, you don't want to grant all shares at once at the beginning, but rather to let the share vest over time, and also mandate them to flow back to the equity pool when someone exit earlier, right? So that's pretty obvious, because you don't want the equity pool to dry up too soon, and therefore lost the incentive. But some are less obvious because, for example, if you have at the very beginning have one major shareholder which will dominate the investment scheme, then it will deter the downstream shareholders from joining. That's also a consideration that not so obvious to the startup founders. So there are many factors to consider, and it's hard to tell them all. But what I want to say is, it seems it's very important for startup founders to find a good source of information. A good consultant or good information source that can alert him when to anticipate the strategic decisions that they need to make, or that source should also provide technical solutions when issues are coming up. So you need someone who has done it, and that is critical to your success. And I think Avery, you probably had your trusted advisor, and I don't know if what I said is correct. That's just my aspect of the of this. Yeah.
Steve, you covered the ground well. So just everyone make sure you have a good legal advisor to help you. And I know many people want to save money in the beginning, right? When you don't have any investment, but you still need to go start a company. So typically it can be done very cheaply, right? So just make sure you have good counsel, like people who have done this before. I think the whole process, it could be simple in the beginning, but of course you can save the legal cost to more of the future things, when you are about to negotiate a deal, right?
Yeah, to
or
remedy,
you
right?
investment coming in, then probably of course those things are more important. So, but don't overlook this, right? I have heard like founders who started the company and found that the founder did not file 83B, right? So when you take shares and it has the vesting schedule, yes, you need to file the Form 83B. If you did not do that, yes, it's going to be big trouble. Sometimes the legal advice may tell you to just restart everything because something is easier to restart rather than trying to fix it. So just make sure little things like that is taken care of, right? But if you have a legal person helping you, this should not happen at all.
Yeah. I'm also curious, right? This is always in my mind. I haven't done a startup, therefore this is the question. So how do you build the right founding team? You have so many people or performing different functions, right? And also, how do you want to at the very beginning be the CEO yourself? Assuming you started as a scientist, or you want to retain someone who is more experienced.
Yeah. So I think I covered a little bit in the beginning that you could just take CSO role, but your CEO role it can be fine too. So in the beginning of a startup, science like the initial discovery is kind of really the major thing. So it actually sometimes makes sense that you just take the CEO role. Just to make in the beginning, it can be very simple, right? Just you need the right scientists, technical people to do the work to make sure you can bring the science to a stage to attract further investors. And then you may consider later on when your science develop, you may start to have a prototype that can potentially be your future drug, right? You start thinking about development, you start thinking about like the disease, the clinical plan, and then if you are like a really a versatile learner, like I think it's no problem, or you already have that experience, right? For myself, I have done all this in my previous years at Amgen, doing this startup investment. So I'm kind of seeing it all. So I feel I'm comfortable to be in that stage. I have seen successful biotech companies that actually started by a PhD scientist or somebody who just come out of the postdoc and remained as the CEO of the company. And I found those people usually have really good advisors behind them, right? Mentors. There are many of those senior people who are just willing to mentor younger people, right? Younger generation. So there's no standard path. Just see if the CEO type role is something that you enjoy doing, just then keep doing it, right? And if your investors also align with you being the CEO, then there's no problem. Or you just bring the right investors that agree that you are the right CEO, right? So there's no standard process, but just be ready for that CEO journey.
Yeah. And I assume they have to like it. Well, whether or not liking it, you have to only try it, then realize if you like to be in the CEO role or you prefer to be the CSO.
Usually, like somebody who are just coming from a scientist, they always have a CBO type of person, a company, the CEO. So then you should have your ground covered that way.
Yeah. So now let's move to the section 2, which is the IP and the technology transfer section.
Yeah. This is your section, Steve. So do you want? Can I ask you some questions then?
Sure.
So like IP is always the biggest thing for the company, and also investors care a lot whether you have a good IP coverage ground, right? Otherwise, if you don't have that, usually you are not investable, right? So the first question is, what is a cost-effective way to would entrepreneurs typically take to secure IP position before disclosing technology publicly or to potential investors? Steve?
I think I think everyone knows that a startup company needs to have a patent protection, but the difficult question is how to do it strategically and cost effectively without over investing too much, right? So I think from a patent perspective, cost effectiveness comes down to three things: timing, quality, and sequence. So first, I would suggest the startup company to avoid filing too early or too broadly, because I've seen too many early filings that based on incomplete data, which often leads to a weak claim or the need for multiple follow-on filings. And then it can get it more expensive, right? So my suggestion is instead of that, focus on identifying the true value-driven driving aspect of the technology and protect those first. My mantra is, focus will save money. Secondly, when you do file some applications, especially like, even most of them file provisionals, right? So you want to file ensure those provisional application investor grade, meaning that it's not just a placeholder, but rather to show it will be able to, be shown to the investor that you do have a firm protection of your technology. And thirdly, I would say most basic and also important of all, as I see, is that before any disclosure, whether to your investors, contractors, anyone really, to make sure there is either a patent protection or good non-disclosure agreement in place. This may sound very basic, but often being forgotten or overlooked by founders.
Steve, one thing I also hear, like, sometimes you may not want to file your patent too early, right? Sometimes, so I think there can be different, because if you file too early, thinking about the whole lifespan of the patent, it may not, so I think there are different approaches to take. Again, I think it's very important to talk to your patent lawyer to make sure you are taking the right path. Usually you want to make sure you are well protected with patent before you talk to investors. But then I hear some occasions people want to purposefully delay it, and here you have the drug in the clinic, or at least the PCC ready. So I think there's different approaches. I think this is also very interesting. So the next question is, what's the most common IP mistakes that scientist founders make? There's prior.
Well, I think there are many, right?
Or like inadequate be avoided.
I think there are many, right? So one is really a premature public disclosure. So the solution here is that you need to, if you really want to publish anything that is valuable, that is critical to your technology, you got to consider patenting it before the publication. And one thing be aware that the founder needs to be aware is that the publishing here is not in a traditional sense or in a scientific sense, right? You don't have to say it's published on the scientific journal in order to be considered published. If you talk to anyone without a CDA, that is considered as a publishing, and that is a priority destroying for the patent protection. So that is very dangerous. So you can discipline yourself, but also, you got to make sure that your employee also be aware of that. And one way to do that is to set a publishing review process internally. Any posters or presentations, any news release, there has to be, being reviewed before it's released to the outside world. another even more kind of a dangerous problem is there's the unclear ownership and the inventorship. And people are often confused between the inventorship and the ownership. Inventorship is who invented the new discovery, right? But it's different from the ownership. Who invented doesn't mean that he owned it. Normally, the inventors own it until it's assigned to the company. And as a company leader, you're going to make sure that all the inventors are correctly identified. You don't want to miss them, because then later on it create an ownership problem. And then once all the inventors are identified, you want to make them to assign their right to the company so that the ownership becomes clear. Why is it important? Because later on, when your technology is to be, licensed to, or even, being reviewed in the due diligence process by investors, it is a critical question. If this is not handled correctly, then it will create all future problems. And lastly is, as Avery just mentioned, there's not one way to say, filing, determining the patent protection and its scope. But you don't want to file too broadly or too narrow, depending on your product and things like similar. So because if you file too broadly, then it will cost a lot, right? But if you file too narrowly, then you kind of lose the asset value in certain market. So my rules of thumb is that the filing will depend on the major market countries of your product. This is, again, right, depending on your product, and also the manufacturing countries. Those basically will cover what's needed, and then based on that, you can either expand or narrow down depending on your financial situation and other factors.
So do you want to quickly cover, usually, if a technology is developed at a university or research institution, so what's the tech transfer process? What are the key negotiation points?
So I think this is my favorite because, well, it's also relevant here because most of the scientists, they are from universities, and their technology is it's coming from their lab, right? And therefore the university owns the IP. And then the first step is for them to license that technology from the school to their own company, and then they can further develop and further downstream, either sell or license to other companies. So for those who are doing this for the first time, there's a few things you must to consider. So the first thing is you need, when you negotiate for a license from the institution, you gotta have, you will want to have the right as much broad scope as you can get. That includes the development, make, sell, commercialize, all those rights for the product. And then you want to have the exclusivity, because if you don't have the exclusivity, then you basically created the demand for the asset, and then the school can license to someone else, right? You don't want that to happen. Another important factor to consider is that you want the sub-licensing, right? This is important because most of the biotech, right, they don't eventually develop the product into a commercial product. They don't even go into phase 2 or phase 3 because of the funding support reasons, right? They are going to sub-license to someone else. If you don't have that right, or that right is restricted by the licensing agreement with the institution, then it will basically make your asset less attractive, right? Of course, the economic terms, right? And most of people focus on those economic terms at the very beginning. It is important, right? But here you got to balance the upfront fees versus the later fees, such as the milestones, royalties, and so forth. Those are financeable terms. Those are important, and that is a key negotiation point. And a factor that is often overlooked by the founders is that the flexibility, the control of this technology. For example, the school of course want to control certain aspect of the sub-licensing and so forth, but you don't want to the extent possible, you don't want to give the school such a broad kind of a leeway to put a restriction on who you can license to or under what term you can license to, because if that restriction is there, once again, when there's a sub-licensing, the big pharmas they will not be happy about it, and that will directly impact the value of your future sub-licensing terms, economic terms. So enough about this IP. I think once more we got to turn into something that is important, which is section 3 about the funding and the financing strategies. Right, this is money. Where the money is from, and I see it's absolutely important. So my question to you, Avery, is that how do you, as a founder, actually get access to investors and the pharma partners?
I think this is probably one of the most deep question that scientist founders will be facing, because you are not used to be interacting with those people. You probably go to scientific conference talking to science colleagues frequently. You have a lot of friends in academia or people in similar type of roles, but investors or those like pharma BD people, you are those people you don't typically interact with. I recall when I was just a scientist at Amgen, I used to actually sit on the same table with the Amgen BD head, and I was like, had no clue about what she's doing. And I think I was asking the stupid questions ever. So just that speaks like the barrier like you need to break into. So I encourage everyone to just go out there, attend the community event, attend all those investor conferences, attend and talk to anyone you see. You just don't know what kind of people, but you need to have a clear goal in your mind. Tell people that, oh, I'm looking to talk to investors. People will make introductions for you, right? So that's what I have been doing, right? Friends that, oh, maybe you happen to know somebody who have interacted for you. And or even better, if you have mentors who are very senior in the industry, they usually can make really, really powerful introductions. And then going to conferences ready to present yourself, talk to people,
Yeah. Well, I guess assuming you have a good science, and then you probably also need a thick skin to talk to them.
Yes.
Well, okay. So I think talking to them is one thing, right? Also, most of the time or all the time that you're going to present in a pitching deck. So what make a compelling biotech pitching deck today?
So just think about what the investors are looking for. Like we said in the beginning, right? They want to see the impact. So there should be clear differentiation of what you are developing that can really attract them, right? So just make sure you show all those. But frequently, like scientists develop decks has too much science, because for investors, many investors, they actually don't care the science that much. You may be disappointed by this, okay? Or depending on the stage, but usually in the very beginning stage, you are talking to those angel investors. They actually usually are people who don't care about the science as heavily. They know the rough area that you are in, and they know you have good publication, and you show like there's impact. Usually those are the things that will attract them. And of course, when they do the deep due diligence, then there will be people who will care all the details. If you move further, you talk to institutional investors. Actually, many of them do ask very deep questions even the first time you meet. So just prepare different versions of your deck. Some can be science heavy, some maybe not that heavy. And in that deck, right, usually you should state the problem, what's your solution, and why people should care, right? And of course, what kind of team is behind it, right? And you may, depending on the stage, you may need to have very clear development plan, like when you want to get to patients, when you plan to be on the market, etc.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I think it needs to have a different versions, right? Different version for different audience. And then there's also a confidential and a non-confidential version. And my kind of other suggestion is, talking to more experienced CEOs like you, I mean, if you have time to just let you to criticize. I think, talking to someone who is more experienced is very helpful.
Oh, I actually not only just experienced people, I actually should go talk to your parents, talk to your kids,
Yeah,
present to
yeah,
them, see if they
yeah.
understand it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And another thing is, I have been doing this company for actually about 4 years now. My pitch deck actually has just, I think I would say 100 versions in a year. It's just how you just frequently have, and actually that makes the different versions hard, right? People were telling me you should keep different versions, but because I keep on having different versions, different people, but then you keep on developing, adding new element. It's very hard to keep things all the versions on the same page sometimes. So you may have your own focus at a certain stage of time.
I'm curious about one thing. This is kind of off the script. Is that how important is it to make it look beautiful, aesthetically appealing, in your opinion? One sentence.
People usually use the external designers that can help beautify the slides.
Yeah.
I was recently introduced that a designer that can do this within about $1,000. And I actually recently learned that another source that they only spend $100 or something to get a deck beautified. So just find all those different resources and use them.
Yeah. All right. I guess the other thing is, for the early stage funding, there are different sources, right? There's a grants from NIH. There's also angel investors. A little bit later, there's the venture capital, and even later on, there's a strategic pharma partners, right? So what are the most appropriate kind of source of funding at what stage?
I think you already captured a quite good overview of all the funding sources and which stage for which ones. But in general, for scientists, if they just moved out of academia to industry, I think the grants are always the best way, the best source, and also the best way to validate their work. And I know over the past year, there's a lot of impacts with the government decisions, but hopefully everything is coming back. Angel investors would be another important source. But then once your company move to the next stage, once you have really the drug start to really show or even you start to have a candidate or even have your PCC, then you will have VCs interested in you, and you'll be ready to really talk to those big bucks. So just I think this is a question that would naturally you will see you will naturally see by asking the investor, what's your typical check size, what the stage do you invest in, right? Always ask that question, then you know whether you are talking to the right investor or not. One thing I want to remind is that the best thing is actually do some pre-work yourself. So if you appeared in front of an investor who only invests late stage investment, and they will be a little not happy, annoyed that why didn't you do your work, right? Why do you just show up in front of me and wasting my time talking to you, even though you're not ready? Although sometimes like people like to actually know that this is coming, like, and so just but always like show that you have done that work researching the investor before you talk to them. If you can, that would be the best.
I'm also curious, in the past few years, 2, 3 years, it wasn't such a good time. But how has the bar for early stage biotech funding has changed, for the past few years?
Yeah, so biotech investment is very sensitive with what the whole the trend of the whole field, right? One day, like gene therapy, cell therapy is the most hottest thing. The next day, it's people don't even look at it, right? So you need to know what's the overall, like what's the appetite right now. So I think going to events, hearing about what people are saying, would be an important thing. Actually, that's the reason I started BioSpark with my co-founders in the beginning. So I think people should have a good sense about the industry while being in that industry, especially for scientists trying to make the transition. So right now, right, we are actually over the past 5 years or so, the industry definitely went through a roller coaster, right? So I think just pre-COVID time or right around COVID time, that's really the peak of the industry, or actually all the way to like 2022, 2020, 2019 to 2021 is probably like the best time of the industry. And then after that, like things just start go down here. And in I think 2024, like people start like really like a lot of layoffs, and you start hearing like companies are going out of business, and then everyone was thinking, wow, okay, maybe next year it will be back. 2025, it did not go back. Now we're at 2026, right? So just like then you can see that when the biotech investment environment is not that hot, or like it's going through that in the down here, the bar for like looking into investing become much more strict. Like less likely for people to invest in very early stage science. People are more looking for clinical asset, looking for at least like usually you hear VCs, at least you need to have PCC or DC, a development candidate. So just be mindful of this, right? But during this time, like the grants, some of the very early stage angel investors would be a good source for you to stay alive at the early stage.
Yeah. With all those difficulties, assuming someone is lucky enough to get the funding, get the company formed, get its technology invented, get the protection, then it comes to the running the company, which I think you have a good experience. You said you've been, with you founded the company and until now it's 4 years, right? So what is it like for running a company, especially what should a scientist, a CEO expect when it comes to hiring, managing, and motivating, especially I would say motivating a team, right? When that person herself is transitioning from leading a lab or to leading a company, how does it like?
So different people may have different style. My style is I think you need to be just be in the background rather than like when you are within your internal team, rather than being the one like doing everything. you should actually make a stage for your team, each of your team member to shine, right? But you have to be the one that being able to put everything together. Unfortunately, only you can do it. There's nobody else can do that. So so it's definitely different, right? Like it's a lot. There's a lot of about the being transparent, being very well aligned with the team members, and sometimes they may not agree with you, right? So depending on the problem, for some problems maybe it's okay for different people have different opinion, and I found this usually when sometimes some innovations happens, right? But for some of the very critical problems, you need to look for consentment. You need to get everybody aligned with you, right? Sometimes you may even need to bring an external expert, or you need to consult with the external person to make sure that you are doing the right thing to sometimes be very firm on some points. So, but just make sure, making an environment that your team member really feel that they are following a leader that is taking them to a place that's they are looking up to that future. Try to do that.
So I hear that you need to take in opinions. You want to help, but all at the same time, all bucks stop at you, and therefore you need to make up your own mind, right? To be firm when you think that's the right direction.
Yeah.
I'm also curious about this burnout. I mean, burnout probably happened in many professions, but I would say among the startup CEOs, that's probably a quite frequent occurrence, right? So how do you deal with that?
Yeah. So I think like a typical feature CEO should have is having that mental resilience. If you, for example, if you let's say like when you have troubles or when you go into problems, what's your reaction? Do you get frustrated? Do you get down? Do you like get too anxious and like don't know what to do? Just if you are that style, don't start a company, right? So I am the type that when trouble comes or when problem comes, right, or challenges comes, it just energizes me. I will just go and try to solve it, the fighting type. And you need to be able to let go your emotions. When you are running a company, when all the responsibilities, like everything is on you, that when there are so many things to take care of, you have room to breathe, to eat, but you don't have room to, feeling too sad or too excited.
Mm-hmm.
Let go all those emotions, because those are what's draining you, what's burning you out. So just be cool, be calm. Good things happen, bad things happen. Just treat your day the same. If you can try to do that, you'll be fine.
So is that fair to say that, this kind of a pressure, constant pressure, or the burnout is what you should, I mean, what you, not you, just a founder should expect, right? It's going to happen. Is that a fair
It's going to be
characterization?
constant pressure. Just don't let the pressure take you. If you can always go above the pressure, you will be fine.
Is this reaction also something that you learn? It's not like naturally you will acquire it. It's a kind of a adaptation.
It is. Actually, it is. I think I am fortunate that I have that enough time to really get myself to that level to learn that before I start the company. So I'll be ready when I do it. So I learned during my years before I even start the company that you never let your emotions burn you, right? And since even when I was just a scientist, I do have the tendency to get myself busy, and I think that helps. Because I tend to, even when I was at Amgen, I'm probably the busiest person in the company because I don't know what's wrong with me. I just have so many projects. I was talking to so many different departments and trying to get things done, right? So that's just me. Like naturally, I like to just I'm just interested in or driven by so many things and just want to take good care of them. So I think that kind of trained me to be where I am.
Yeah, yeah. I have seen more than one CEO that have this kind of trait. They wanted to get involved in different things. They don't feel that kind of a business is a burden, but rather something that they enjoy, right? At least to a certain extent. Yeah, interesting. Um, um, my other question is a bit broad, but you can pick, right? So my question is, what are the most common legal, financial, operational pitfalls that scientific founders fall into, and do you have any kind of a suggestion to avoid them early on?
Yeah, I think based on what I have seen, there are many different types of things that people can fall into. Like, for example, like your beginning team, like how you allocate your shares, right? Who are your co-founders? So many of this, like you as a scientist, you have no experience to deal with, right? And you may in the future, I think many people a couple of years later when the investors come in and found this is a problem. So you do want to like talk to investor friends, talk to your advisors, and try to make sure it's not a red flag for investors, right? I think the cap table is usually, or like I hear like some of the now doing very well entrepreneurs telling me, "Wow, I wish in the beginning I did not give up my shares so quickly to every single advice, and it doesn't make sense at all." So just make sure you talk to people, right? I think there are other similar problems, like maybe there's IP type of issues, or even later on, right? In hiring, what kind of people you hire. So just try to find people who can actually like you can be your sounding board. You can talk to those people and have some advisors, mentors that you can go to if possible. So it's okay. Like everybody make mistakes. But the most important thing is actually realize them. Once you realize a mistake, fix it ASAP. Okay. So that's the type, like as a CEO, if you need to have the agility to be agile, to be able to respond very quickly. That's how your company can really quickly pivot. It could be something actually just science related, right? You maybe go on a path in science in a program that it turns out not making sense, right? Just once you realize it, just pivot right away, right? So you need to make that quick decision and be able to evolve yourself, evolve the organization as you go, and have people talking to.
Do you think when you hire people, do you think you always pick the right person? If that's the case, then what is your secret? Or it's hard to do that?
I have to say that for any startup, for any company, any startup company, hiring would be like nobody has the magic solution. Even an experienced entrepreneur can like not
Just the
be
wrong person.
yes. So that's something. So that's why sometimes you see like people usually would like to take people they have worked with before, because they know like
Okay.
there's no way this is going to go into like completely unexpected directions, right?
Yeah.
So when you hire somebody you don't know, right, do the background check well, and if there's a way you can talk to people who they have worked with before. Yeah, sometimes it's just a luck thing.
Yeah. I want to add that maybe, if you realize that it's the wrong choice, then as you said, you probably want to take a quick action. Otherwise, it will
Yes.
probably bring down the whole team.
Yes, it's okay to make mistakes, but just make sure actually when you sometimes I saw like companies bring in somebody who is very experienced, very senior, and they sign the contract they sign, like the hiring legal document.
Yeah.
Be very conscious about that, because if they're sometimes like very experienced people, they ask you to put in terms that
That's true. Yeah.
I have seen companies that lost like having millions of dollars to just one wrong hire. That's how bad that can be. Yeah.
That's I totally agree with that. Yeah. So now we are getting to the last section, which is the exit strategy, which is, I think, very important, right? So what are the common exit paths for a biotech startup, and how early should founders begin to plan and position itself, the company itself, for such exit?
So I think usually like for startup companies there are two types, right? One is a platform company. Another is like just a pure asset company. Usually the pure asset company is probably not started by a pure scientist, but probably like more like a business person and acquire the asset, something like that. You see a lot of recently there's a lot of those new codes. Anyway, those are different. I would say like for a scientist founder, usually it's a platform company. But either case, right? Like usually first thing when you sometimes when you talk to an investor, the typical investor would actually ask, what's your exit strategy? This is something that scientists would not be prepared to answer, because usually all we want to do is to make sure we can validate the science and develop a product that can be ready for patients to try. I think when it's there, we know everything will be naturally take its path. Right? I personally think like it's what a horrible question, but you need to be prepared for it, right? And you actually need to have an idea about it. So and usually IPO or M&A are the most typical path is that when people would take, right? And you can see when the market is hot during the COVID time, you see a lot of IPOs, right? And now when the market is down, you see a lot of M&As, pharma companies that are the ones that still have the cash and willing to take the risk, or willing to go out there and buy things. So just I think I hear a lot saying like M&As are the best, because after IPO, the company still it's not yet finished. It's just a start of another new journey. So yeah, but for investors, both are good exit paths.
So I guess for founders, they should start to think about exit, have some idea at the very beginning. Don't need to wait until later on.
But also those answers can be quite standard. Like
Mm-hmm.
when my lead program get the clinical proof of concept, I would say that that's a good stage for my company to go IPO, or we may be an attractive for farmers to acquire us, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I feel, people told me that the VCs, their interest is to, I guess, to generate revenue for their investment. But I guess the interest of the founder are twofold. One is to, of course, to generate revenue, but the other one is to make a good science, make a good product. Maybe there's a kind of a misalignment there. But I would say, for founders, they just need to be aware what is the number one priority for the investors. Yeah. My other question is, in your mind, what are the key scientific, clinical, or even regulatory value inflection points that drive biotech valuations? It's kind of a related, but it's a different question or a different aspect.
Yeah, for this actually there is quite a standard answer, right? So for if you are developing therapeutics, so typically like you like the first like really big value driven milestone is your development candidate, right? Because after this you will be start doing all those IND enabling studies. Also, that's the time you may need to like a development person, a translation person. So that's the first big milestone. And the next milestone, of course, is IND, or sometimes people see GLP talks, because when you finish your GLP talks, you'll be ready for IND. So that's definitely another milestone. And after that is when the product goes to the clinic. So I think the obvious one is the clinical proof of concept. Before that, just even the phase 1 dosing in patients, showing the safety, that's a big thing. So sometimes I hear that people don't value IND that much. They value the clinical data more. And actually those milestones, those value inflection point will also be what's driving your fundraising strategy, right? How much, like when you go to investor that, oh, I want $5 million to develop my lead program to a development candidate, right? You need to have very clear. Or if you go to investor, I want 10 million, 30 million, 50 million. You need to very clearly tell them what are the deliverables, right? And these are the typical deliverables that you can tell people. And when you if you sign a pharma partnership, right, those milestones are also the typical ones that will show up on the deal page, right? From like
yeah, the term sheet.
DC, yeah.
Then how do you position your company to be an attractive acquisition target?
So I think this is really goes aligns with everything, like why you are starting a company, why you are attractive with for investor, like just having a very clear differentiation, having a very clear impact to patients, solving critical problem, right? And strong IP, right? And then like if it's to be attractive to a farmer, you need to be whatever you're doing should align with their strategic interest. Usually that's something you would not consider in the beginning, but if you are getting to a stage, then you go to those companies who actually fits the strategic interest. Yeah. And of course make sure like this with our company, everything is like from the legal side, everything is clean and clear, right? That's also sometimes can jeopardize the an acquisition.
All right. I think we have left some time for the audience to ask their questions.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Avery and Steve, and for such a rich and insightful discussion. And we've really covered a full life cycle of building a biotech company, from the very first question of whether your science and mindset are ready for funding, through IP strategy and technology transfer, to navigating today's challenging funding environment, and ultimately what it takes to run and scale a company and think about long-term exit strategies. I particularly appreciate the practical perspectives you shared, whether it's avoiding common IP pitfalls or understanding what investors truly look for. So I'm sure our audience also found this incredibly valuable. So with that, we'll now transition to the Q&A portion of this session. So as a reminder, we've reserved the time for your questions. So please continue to submit them through the Q&A box to our audience. And then so let me start with our first question from the audience. And then in general, how does one identify potential business partners? In my view, it is more risky to start a company with friends, but how to establish trust with a stranger and how to know if the chemistry is right. And relate to that question is, do you find it's important to have a co-founder for fundraising? I think this question is more for Avery.
Yeah, so very good question. And I have to say that this is also difficult to answer. And one thing I want to warn people is that if you decided to start a company with a friend, be very well prepared that that your friendship will be jeopardized, may never come back after this. You did this, so be very thinking this through before you decided to do that. And yeah, finding a business partner or how to work with a stranger, it's hard. So I think you need to know, like, what kind of expertise or what kind of personality to compromise you, right? So if you find somebody can really compromise you that way, and of course the best is if you have worked together before to give. Otherwise, yes, it is hard. I frequently found people who found themselves a business partner, but then they work together and found it does not work at all, right? But again, right, just get ready get prepared for all the unforeseen happenings that might happen and be able to react. So it's okay to make mistakes, but to start a journey, to start a company, you may find you need somebody like that to just find somebody who really seems to be the best fit at the time. It's okay, and keep your mind open and keep on talking to more people. But the best thing is if you already decided to work together, then try to each of you need to take a compromise to work together.
And
or if you just decide to do your own and find some good advisors to mentor you.
And then how important is to have a co-founder for fundraising? I think this is for Avery.
I think it just varies, right? I see like single founders successfully fundraised, but usually those people has already demonstrated has a history that validated their capability to run a business or to lead the science to a successful product. I do see more common is actually having 2 or 3 partner together. And I would say that's might be many times better because you have people to share the risk with you and work with you. when you are in the entrepreneurship journey, if you're on your own, it's a very, very lonely journey. And having somebody with you, makes a huge difference. It may make more sense for many people to have that partner to be with you.
Oh, thank you. That's very helpful. And then now there's a question for both Steve and Avery. We have registered C Corp in US, and we also want to access to the capital and potentially help patients in China. It could be easier to start there, such as efficient CRO, early clinical study, IIT, for example. Any suggestions how to run the startup?
So maybe I can get started, and Steve, you can chime in. I think for most founding teams, if they are in US, they usually always would start a dollar well, sign up a dollar well entity, and then have the operation in wherever the state of the founder is at. But if you are thinking to go to China to actually either to attract Chinese investors or even take RMB, not dollar, or if you want to go to China to do IIT, and maybe let me separate the two for now. So if you are going to places like China, and if you can still find, there are many Chinese investors actually have a dollar fund, right? So you can still maintain your dollar or entity. But nowadays, actually, there is a lot of the RMB funds that be ready to deploy to you. And many funds, even if they have both type of money, they usually found it's much easier to deploy the RMB fund, right? So in that case, typically they will ask you to start a Cayman type of structure. Actually, I don't know the English, 红筹架构.
Yeah, that's okay.
Although recently there are complications that the people found the Cayman setup does no longer work for the Hong Kong IPO market. So there are investors actually telling you, oh, we don't even like that at all. Like you to have a China entity, like the China headquarters, to be the one that taking funding. So if you can be ready to do that, to go to China and make China your headquarters, you can get funding very easily. Now, I think that the question was about IIT. For IIT trials, you absolutely need to have a China company that is sponsoring, that is behind the trial, and all the productions, all the CNC manufacturing needs to be happening in China. And I think that you need to also have the IP in China. So for that, you will need a Chinese entity. But what kind of structure would you need to take, right? It can be simply a subsidiary of your US entity. It can be using that Cayman structure, both US and China. Cayman, or you can have just a China company that may have nothing to do with US. You can license your product, the IP, to that China entity. Or you can even make the China entity as your headquarters. But no matter what, there need to be a China entity, and there are different options to take. And my suggestion is talk to your investor and make sure you figure out a good path together.
Yeah, I think Avery covers well. I guess that shows her for 4 years of experience, right? So knows about this structure. Almost sounds like a lawyer. What I can suggest is that really it depends on the specific situation. We can. I think for me, it's not a place for me to suggest a solution because I don't know about all the informations. If this person wants to, chat about it, we can do it. Maybe Yingxi, you can put back on the contact information, the LinkedIn code. If any of the audience want to talk to us offline, getting some advice or input, they're more than welcome to do so.
Thank you, Steve. And then, so the next question is about IP, how to avoid or negotiate with a research institute.
How to avoid?
Yes, how to avoid or negotiate with a research institute.
Well, well, if the IP is owned by the research institute, there's no way if you want to get from them, right? There's no way you can avoid to negotiate. It's all about, well, I know the institutions, they wanted to I guess to market or to license out their technology. It's a matter of money and control, how much control they can have on that thing. I would say, find someone who can help you on that, who had experience and to negotiate. It's not just in one, two sentences or 5 minutes. It's really depending on the situation. I have given the pointers in my, in the discussion we just had now for some particular pitfalls that, or the point that the entrepreneur need to consider. But of course, there are many things beyond that. So if he wants to talk more about it, then he can contact Avery and me.
Thank you. And then here's a question for Avery. So what was the moment like when you are sure it's time to quit your 9-to-5 corporate job and start your own company?
I think the best time is the investor comes to you with money and says, "Come with me." That's the best time.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. If there's nobody giving you money and you want to come out to do the startup, then watch what's the overall biotech status is like. If the whole industry is down, I suggest you just stay in your job and don't come out, okay? Because it's you don't. I have seen people who is right now like living on the credit card and telling me that they will have nothing left in a month if they don't get the funding come in. You don't want to be in that situation, okay? You don't want to be like become a homeless. So that's the last thing you want to you don't do. That's I don't think the science worth that much to ruin your whole life, right? Don't go into that situation.
Avery, I think what you just said eliminate 10 potential to be entrepreneurs.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's very practical advice. It's very important. And so then relate to that question, there's a question is they wonder whether you mind sharing your own company's story regarding how you got your seed money, and thanks in advance. I think this question is also to Avery.
Mine is not typical actually. So as mentioned, I worked at an incubator, doing startup investment, etc. And actually, my company started from the incubator supported me. So I did not take the typical brave path of scientists deciding go to the industry. Sorry, go start a company without knowing what they are going to be facing. I think that's too much of risk. I started that journey because actually at the time the incubator is willing to fund me to do the work. Otherwise, I don't think I would be ready to come out that early. I think you need to have some financial certainness before you come out. I see that some of the successful scientists, entrepreneurs, or the ones that are doing quite well right now, they usually they apply for a grant and get that grant funding, and that give them a reason to come out, right? Or there's a particular award from some of those angel investors. Like I think you need some tipping point for you to make the transition, because getting into the entrepreneurship world or getting into startup world is a big decision, and it's going to be completely change your life, right?
Thank you. We appreciate that. And then the next question is patent filing essential to start a new company? In other words, how heavy do investors rely on patent?
Avery, probably you want to talk about that.
Okay, I think this is also depends on the different style of startup companies. So I think if you are just a scientist right now and don't know much about industry, you probably always want to have a patent. The scenarios I see that people come out to start a company without any patents, usually they are very experienced in the industry, and the investors just willing to put the bet just on the person, But if you're a scientist who has no track record, right? Unless you are a professor that has really done a lot of work, but even that, you should have tons of patents sitting behind you. So I would say, like, if you are just a scientist who are not that experienced decided to run a biotech, you should always have some patents with you. Maybe like you can leave some room for your critical product you will be developing. You can leave that until you start the company to actually file patent for that critical product, right? But there should be something like publications. Well, if it's published without patent, it's a red flag, right? Everybody can follow it with. So I think there should always be some patent if you are a scientist become an entrepreneur.
And Steve, do you have anything to add up?
I have one question. For Avery, you at the beginning you said that Ribbleweight is AI-based driven company, right? So nowadays there's it's pretty prevalent. And how do you differentiate signal versus noise? What make an AI-based company be distinguished from others, peers?
I think so AI drug development, I think almost every single company is saying that right now. So if you don't have AI element in your company, you may sound a little behind. But that's also shows a lot of bubbles out there, right? A lot of overstatement, right? And I think when at BioSpark we host a lot of this kind of discussions, and actually a month ago, it's like last month I was at but in general, like the real differentiation in my mind, okay. Again, my opinion is just my own opinion, so don't 100% rely on it. In my mind, that an AI drug development, a company the company should leverage AI, but what's really critical is really your data, like having having the right expertise, having the wet lab platforms, technologies to be able to enable, even though you can leverage AI to make a lot of predictions, but if you don't have the wet lab element to translate it, it's usually likely, like it's, if you hear a company just selling on the AI drug development and cannot showing other capabilities, this is more for investors. Okay, watch out. It's usually like likely like you are likely walking into a pitfall, you know. So watch out for that.
Okay, thank you. And due to the time constraints, so there will be the last question for this session, which is, what is the most important non-science position to fill in your startup? It's the question to Avery.
BD, business person, I said in the beginning, because and actually, like, no matter what stage you are, usually you need to survive. Okay, so people also ask, like, what surprised you, and actually, like, it's actually like the amount of energy and amount of time you went into making sure the company can do well, make sure you have enough funding to get through the next stage. And for companies who even already raised, they always worry about like how long they can survive, they can maintain, right? So you're always constantly thinking about like getting enough funding, getting enough like budget to keep things healthy, right? So that means you will be constantly talking to investors. You will be constantly talking to potential pharma partners. Like once you are in this entrepreneurship journey, it's just a never ending, like you are just constantly in this mode. Like even if you already just close round, you will see that entrepreneur is already in the process of talking about the next round raise or talking to more partners. So that means your business partner is very, very important. Even for somebody who is a like experienced entrepreneur, has a lot of business experience, they will still need somebody to help with the BD business side, right? And then another person is operation. Actually, this is very important even when the company is small. You cannot imagine how many small things that you need to deal with. You don't want to, as a scientist entrepreneur, you don't want energy to be drained into that, and you will find that you are not good at handling all those, and you will hate doing it, but you have to deal with it, right? So you better find somebody who can help with those operations side. Well, usually your CBO, the business person, can take some of those. Yes, so business and operation, always find somebody that kind of person to help you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And that concludes our Q&A sessions. Again, we have put up Dr. Yuan and Dr. Chen's contact information and the QR code here. So if you have any following up questions, please feel free to contact them individually. And thank you so much again, like for your engaged participation in this Q&A session, and for sharing, and also for our special guests for sharing your time, experience, and your insights with us today. And thank you for our audience for your thoughtful questions and active participation. We truly appreciate your engagement. However, due to time constraints, we're unable to address every questions or explore all the important topics raised today. Nevertheless, we deeply appreciate your participation.